Depending on who you ask, there are about 100 different styles of beer, and some of these beers have just a little bit of gray area in between. What's up everybody, Just Brewing here. Welcome back to the home brewery for another grain to glass video. Your IPA and your standard pale ale, there are going to be some very common similarities and some obvious differences. Your standard American IPA is going to be slightly bitter with quite a bit of hop character nowadays, usually citrusy and fruity, while your American pale ale might be just a little bit more malty than its, a hoppy counterpart. And it usually has a little bit of hop character, but not as much as an IPA would. Enter the Hoppy Pale Ale. This falls right in between the two, and sometimes you want that hop character, some fruity flavors, without some of the bitterness that hops can carry. Depending on the area that you're in, you may see hoppy pale ales and even hazy pale ales, which some people would even go further to defend the IPA and the hazy IPA. These are styles that, again, are right in between some others, and I think that's a good thing, being able to brew just about anything that you want. That's one of the benefits of being a home brewer. If you want a hoppy, bitter beer, you can do that. If you want to make a crazy Imperial Triple IPA, you can do that. If you want to make the world's haziest pale ale that has no hop bitterness, you can do that. If you wanted to, you could make a stout with lager yeast. You could make, the choice is yours. When it comes down to the ingredients, it's entirely up to the brewer and what you have on hand. One of the many benefits is being able to brew exactly what you want. And that's what I did here. That's what you're going to be seeing. I wanted a light, fruity, hoppy beer, but I was just finishing up an IPA on tap and I didn't want another one. So if the two were both on tap, I at least wanted to consider something like a hoppy pale ale, so it wasn't two IPAs on tap. If you like grain to glass videos like this one, feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. You can visit justbrewing.com where you can donate to me directly, and you can pick up some merch where all merch proceeds are gonna go to charity. Let's go ahead and get right into Brew Day. Brew Day starts with a nice crush of the grain bill that you're seeing on screen. We're gonna mash for 1 hour at 149 degrees Fahrenheit. This brew day, my pump was actually working, so you get to see my sparge arm in use. Crazy, right? At the end of our mash, we're going to yank our grains, get it to a boil, and add our hops according to the on-screen hop schedule. I usually start brew day pretty early, but this time was an exception, and it got quite dark when I was adding my Whirlpool additions. So I didn't feel like editing that in post, so this is what we're going with. To ferment this bad boy, we're going to be using Omega's Lutrica Vike. This is actually the dry strain, and this is the first time I've used it. I'm going to be pitching this directly on top of my aerated wort, and we're going to ferment this right here in our garage next to our fermentation chamber. I've been doing double brew days as of late, and my fermentation chamber is chock full of beer right now. So I'm not able to use it. I'm just going to ferment next to it inside my fermentation jacket on top of a heating pad for about a week and a half at 80 degrees Fahrenheit. After that, it's time to keg, carb, and get it ready for the tasting. And here we have it in a glass. A Hoppy Pale Ale. On the color, this is about what you would expect. Some pale ales do get closer to the amber side, some are on the much more pale side, but this I think is closer to the pale side. It definitely looks like an IPA. If you handed this to someone and told them it was an IPA or a hazy, they just might believe you. But really it is a Hoppy Pale Ale, and it shares a lot of the characteristics of both styles of beer. On the nose, you do get some of the spice and pepper aromas that Magnum has to offer. That was my bittering hop, and some of that does come through. I'm glad a little bit does come through, mostly because I don't want very much bitterness to come out of it, and the Citra and Summit hops you get some of the other citrus aromas out of it, but I'm really glad that the backbone Magnum is still there. You can actually see that it's there. On the taste, a touch of that Magnum spicy and pepperiness does come through. There's just a little bit of it there up front, and then the rest of it is a lot of hop flavor. It's quite juicy right on the front end. You get a bit of citrus, quite a bit of citrus, but for me personally, specifically, I'm getting what I think is grapefruit, and that's really cool, being able to dive in and find some of those flavors. There's probably some others in there, but I just don't have the palate to find them. On the mouthfeel, my water profile was targeting your standard American Pale Ale style, which essentially gave me a slightly dry or bitter water profile, which does come through. It is a bit dry on the taste, and I think that helps balance out some of the hop characteristic, but I do wish it was a little bit more balanced. The dryness, I mean, I think I could have gotten that out of the hop. At least I could have maybe added a little bit more Magnum, and I think that I would prefer that over what actually is coming through, and it's really, really good. I don't make it sound like it's not good, but I do wish the mouthfeel was a little bit more balanced to accentuate the hops a little bit more. I probably should have given something like a hazy IPA water profile opposed to American Pale Ale. It's not exactly a pale ale, it's a hoppy pale ale, so I probably should have pushed towards favoring the hops over the style in this case. It's still a really good beer, but some of that dryness is complemented by the hop character, but I do wish some of the hop character was a little bit more prevalent. This is one of those beers that I did a split package and bottled about like a gallon, maybe 9 beers, and I kegged the rest. The observant viewer may have noticed in the last few videos that I did have some on tap. I don't have any more now, and this is actually out of the bottle, and it's, I mean, about as clear as it can be as far as, you know, coming from the bottle. Homebrew beer out of the bottle sometimes does have quite a bit of, you know, floating yeast in it, especially if you don't cold crash it, and I usually don't, mostly because, I mean, it takes time, and sometimes I don't have space to do that. But in this case, the beer it's been in the fridge for a minute, and it's about as clear as it can be. And I'm really, really glad that there aren't any, you know, yeast rafts or, you know, yeast floating around in this. That makes for a less attractive beer. And one like this, yeah, you want to be able to admire it. I mean, it looks good, and it looks as good as it tastes. As I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of styles of beer, and being a home brewer, we can brew whatever we want. I mean, really, it just comes down to the ingredients. You don't need to put a label on it. You don't need to put a name on it. You barely even have to give it a style characteristic, but that does make it easier to tell people what it is, what you're drinking, and I'm glad something like Hoppy Pale Ale exists. It makes it much easier to let someone know exactly what they're getting into. I mean, it looks like an IPA. It looks like, you know, what might be a blonde or some other pale beers, but it doesn't have some of those characteristics that your standard IPA is going to have. Not a lot of people like IPAs, and giving them something like a Hoppy Pale Ale may make more sense for them. So I'm really, really glad these types of beers exist, and I can't wait to brew the next one. Thanks for viewing. Just Brewing.